Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi opens the second Voice of Global South Summit, says it's time for members to talk in one voice for greater global good. 5 Lashkar-e-Toiba terrorists killed in firefight with the Indian security forces at Kulgam in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. The central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh goes to the polls today, voting also on in the second and final phase of election in the state of Chhattisgarh. India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal calls APEC talks engaging, says world leaders are looking forward to greater engagements with India. And Israel claims to have found a Hamas tunnel at Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital, body of a hostage found in an adjacent building. The virtual session of the second Voice of Global South Summit began in New Delhi this morning. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the inaugural session, in which he asserted that geographically the Global South has always existed, but it is getting a voice for the first time, and this is because of joint efforts.
भौगोलिक रूप से तो ग्लोबल साउथ तो हमेशा से रहा है, लेकिन उसे इस प्रकार से वॉइस पहली बार मिल रही है और यह हम सभी के साझा प्रयासों से संभव हुआ है। हम 100 से ज्यादा अलग अलग देश हैं, लेकिन हमारे हित समान है, हमारी प्राथमिकताएं समान है। फ्रेंड्स, पिछले वर्ष दिसंबर में जब भारत ने G20 की अध्यक्षता संभाली, तो हमने इस फोरम में ग्लोबल साउथ के देशों की आवाज को आगे बढ़ाना अपना दायित्व माना।
Stressing on responsible use of artificial intelligence, Prime Minister Modi announced that India will organize the Artificial Global Partnership Summit.
भारत मानता है कि नई टेक्नोलॉजी नॉर्थ और साउथ के बीच दूरियां बढ़ाने का नया स्रोत नहीं बनना चाहिए। आज आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस एआई के युग में टेक्नोलॉजी को रिस्पॉन्सिबल तरीके से उपयोग में लाने की बहुत जरूरत है। इसको आगे बढ़ाने के लिए भारत में अगले महीने एआई ग्लोबल पार्टनरशिप समिट आयोजित की जा रही है। G20 द्वारा डिजिटल पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर यानी डीपीआई के फ्रेमवर्क को अपनाया गया है, जिससे आवश्यक सेवाओं की लास्ट माइल डिलीवरी में सहायता मिलेगी और इंक्लूसिविटी बढ़ेगी।
The Prime Minister, during his opening remarks at the Voice of Global South Summit, also touched upon the Israel-Hamas conflict, saying that India has exercised restraint so far and also given emphasis on dialogue and diplomacy. He stressed that this is the time when the countries of the Global South should unite for the greater global good.
सिविलियंस की मौत की हम कठोर निंदा करते हैं। राष्ट्रपति महमूद अब्बास जी से बात कर हमने फिलिस्तीन के लोगों के लिए मानवीय सहायता भी भेजी है। ये समय है जब ग्लोबल साउथ के देश ग्रेटर ग्लोबल गुड के लिए एक स्वर में बात करें। वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर के लिए हम सब मिलकर 5 C's के साथ आगे बढ़ें। जब मैं 5 C's की बात करता हूं तब कंसल्टेशन, कोऑपरेशन, कम्युनिकेशन, क्रिएटिविटी और कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग।
And my colleague Jessica Taneja now joins us for more on this story. Jessica, what are some of the key takeaways from the Indian Prime Minister's speech?
Right, and as you heard about the 5 C's that the Prime Minister was talking about, which is consultation, cooperation, communication, creativity and capacity building. And not to forget, Ramesh, this is the second such event in less than a year. So, of course, greater importance given to the voice of the global south that India had pledged under its G20 presidency just about a month ago. Many other initiatives, for example, the disaster resilience task group that was set up. We have now information that there has been a working group that's being formed, and we will see more advancements in that particular direction. We also know the Prime Minister spoke about the AI and the importance of artificial intelligence. We've seen in the recent past as well. There have been summits and global events highlighting the need to, first of all, look at the challenges of artificial intelligence and what kind of regulation it requires given its kind of usage in today's day and age. So, of course, all of those deliberations continue, but also in the backdrop of all of this, the Prime Minister did also highlight and put his point forward about the kind of regional conflicts taking place at the moment in the Middle East would affect the economies of the global south, particularly when, as their concerns have been, when they're in a sort of need for supplies, etc. All the entire geoeconomics that surrounds it would affect the economies of the global south. Perhaps India wants to focus on how to energize those economies and prevent them from such geopolitical rumblings.
Let's now talk a bit, if you will, Jessica, about the summit itself. How did the second edition of the Voice of Global South summit come about, and what might be on its agenda?
Well, 125 countries and the induction of African Union was a significant step for India under its G20 presidency. Given that backdrop in mind, we've seen a lot of deliberations and participation about what all efforts that need to be made, particularly with respect to resilient supply chains and, of course, food insecurity that we're facing at this point, because, again, pointing out at the regional conflicts, earlier it was Russia-Ukraine, now we're looking at Israel and Gaza. So, of course, one of the aspect covers that. Also, India talks about its vaccine diplomacy as well, especially the pharmaceutical sector, and how India can contribute in expanding those supply chains and also giving more resources to developing economies to build their own resilient supply chains, etc. So, of course, one of these issues, these issues particularly have been covered so far. We're expecting more outcome details towards the evening today from the Foreign Secretary, Vinay Quatra, which will sort of highlight as to what all outcomes have been taken into consideration, what all outcomes have there really been during this entire summit that was held today, and what have the leaders in particular assisted with, or what are the challenges that commonly need to dealt by all these countries.
All right, Jessica, thank you for now. Appreciate it. Now to some updates on the Israel-Hamas conflict. The Israeli military has said that it uncovered a Hamas tunnel shaft at Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital complex. The army said its troops also found a vehicle in the hospital containing a large number of weapons. The Israeli military also made public videos and photographs of the tunnel shaft and weapons.
The army forces found underground shaft inside Al-Shifa hospital. The engineering forces destroyed the infrastructure. We also found in the hospital Hamas vehicle that was ready to be part of the October 7 attack, but did not go on the road, and inside it was a huge amount of arms.
The Israeli military has said its soldiers have found the body of an Israeli hostage taken into Gaza by the Hamas in its attack last month. Israel's military spokesperson said the body of Yehudit Weiss, one of the hostages taken by the Hamas gunmen, was recovered by troops in a building near the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza.
The body of Yehudit, may her soul rest in peace, was recovered by our forces. The 7th Brigade, which was scanning the area nearby the Al-Shifa hospital, recovered her body in one of the homes during the scanning. Near her body, we found bodies of terrorists who were holding Yehudit.
Meanwhile, Israel has said the military uncovered significant material in its operation at the Al-Shifa hospital. Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said its commandos were still searching through the Al-Shifa hospital. He said the operation to wipe out the Hamas terrorists is being done in a precise, selective, but very determined manner.
There are significant findings there. The operation continues and it is done in a precise, selective, but very determined manner. The more we deepen this operation, increase the pressure on Hamas and erode more headquarters, damage more tunnels, eliminate more operatives and bring down more heads of organizations, the greater the chances of returning our hostages. Because the enemy only understands power, and we explain to him very well what power is.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke with the Israeli War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz. They discussed efforts to boost and accelerate the transit of critical humanitarian assistance into Gaza. The U.S. State Department, in a statement, said that the two leaders discussed efforts to prevent the conflict widening and to secure the release of all hostages. Blinken also stressed the urgent need for affirmative steps to de-escalate tensions in the West Bank. The U.S. Secretary of State also spoke with his Egyptian counterpart, Sameh Shoukry, about efforts to increase humanitarian aid to Gazans in urgent need. Blinken reaffirmed the importance of concrete steps to minimize harm to civilians in Gaza, and he reaffirmed Washington, D.C.'s rejection of the forced displacement of the people in Gaza. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Polling on in the two Indian states of Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. Indian non-governmental entities led by InSpace explore partnership opportunities in the United Arab Emirates. An Indian minister to attend new Maldives president's inauguration.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such change makers.
Watch Change Makers on DD India.
Always welcoming. The vibe of Punjab is larger than life. Warm up to grandeur that's beyond compare. And history that's dotted with tales of bravery. Smiling soul of India, where music, art, cuisine and culture comes together to create an unforgettable impression. Punjab is all set to win your hearts with its unique and colorful extravaganza.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Assembly elections are underway in the Indian states of Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh on Friday amid tight security. In Madhya Pradesh, voting is taking place for all 230 seats in a single phase. while in Chhattisgarh, polling is underway for 70 seats in the second phase. As per the Election Commission of India, Madhya Pradesh recorded a voter turnout of 45.4%, while Chhattisgarh saw 38.22% polling till 1 p.m. on Friday. The ruling party, the BJP, has been in power in Madhya Pradesh for almost 18 of the last 20 years and is seeking to retain power in the state. Meanwhile, in Chhattisgarh, there's a tough fight between the ruling Congress party and the opposition BJP. Aditya Srivastava joins us from Bhopal. Aditya, how's the polling coming along in Madhya Pradesh?
Yes, Ramesh, today is an important day for people of Madhya Pradesh. More than 45% voters have already cast their vote in Madhya Pradesh. Election Commission set up more than 64,000 polling stations in MP all across the state. We can say a lot of preparation did by the Election Commission. As we saw behind me, this is the Adarsh polling station of Bhopal. We can say voters are very enthusiastic, especially first-time voters who cast their vote. More than 22 lakh first-time voters in Madhya Pradesh. And if we talk about the total number of voters in MP, it's 5 crore 58, more than 5 crore 58 lakh voters in MP, and more than 48% voters are women voters. So we can say the more enthusiasm is also in women voter also. Women voter also, the important factor in MP election. More than in 230 seats, around 2,533 candidates are in battle in Madhya Pradesh. And if we talk about Chhattisgarh, more than the 38% voters are cast their vote in till 1 p.m. Around 18,000 polling stations are located in Chhattisgarh also. We can say a lot of preparation did by the Election Commission also.
All right, we leave it at that. Aditya Srivastava in Bhopal, thank you. Appreciate it. Moving on to some other news now. Indian non-governmental entities led by InSpace are exploring partnership opportunities in the UAE to unlock collaborative potential with global companies. India, despite being a leading space-faring nation, accounts for only 2% of the global space economy. InSpace, in collaboration with ISRO, is devising a decadal vision and strategy for the Indian space economy. The InSpace digital platform, launched in August 2022, streamlines application submission, processing and approval for NGEs in the space sector. The platform has already submitted over 350 applications. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh met his Timor-Leste counterpart Donaciano da Costa Gomes in Indonesia's Jakarta. Minister Singh said that the duo discussed potential areas for future collaboration, including supply of made-in-India defence equipment, capacity building and training. Minister Singh is in Jakarta for the 10th ASEAN Defence Ministers Meeting Plus. Now, leaders attending the APEC summit in San Francisco were unable to reach consensus on the trade portion of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. The US-led framework, which India is a part of, is seen as a bid to counter Chinese influence in the region. Ira Spitzer is at the summit and filed this report. Take a look.
The Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit is all but wrapped up here in San Francisco with more than a dozen leaders from around the world basically just going to meet for a retreat in the morning, as well as a couple bilateral meetings before heading back to their respective countries. Now, India is not an official member of APEC, but was represented here as a guest economy with the Minister of Industry and Commerce, Piyush Goyal, attending parts of the summit, as well as the negotiations taking place on something called the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity, commonly called the IPEF. And that agreement is widely seen as an attempt by the U.S. to try and counter Chinese economic influence in the Indo-Pacific region. And President Biden had hoped, heading into the APEC Leaders Summit, to have the IPEF completely signed, sealed, and agreed by the 14 member economies, including India. However, that actually hit some snags along the way in the negotiating process. IPEF is divided into these 4 pillars. Those pillars are supply chain resilience, trade, clean energy, as well as anti-corruption measures. Now, the leaders were able to agree on 3 of those pillars, but that crucial trade pillar proved elusive. And India, by the way, is not party to the trade part of the IPEF agreement. So we heard from President Biden just a short while ago saying that this is going to be an ongoing negotiation as these economies try and come to some agreement about issues like market access, which of course is something that the other nations in the United States would like to have for their economies, but the U.S. has been reluctant so far to grant that sort of market access or the types of trade deals that some are looking for. So President Biden hailing this as a victory, but also, of course, some disappointment here at the failure to really agree this comprehensive agreement. Reporting in San Francisco, Ira Spitzer for DD India.
On the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit that was going on in San Francisco, India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal spoke to media, where he called the dialogue among all the world leaders to be engaging. Take a listen.
It was a very engaging dialogue, and clearly the collective wisdom of all the leaders in the room was towards working as friends, as partners, and finding a faster pathway to a sustainable world.
And speaking to the media, India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal also said that the countries around the world are influenced by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's call for diplomacy and dialogue to resolve conflicts.
All the countries of the world are deeply influenced by Prime Minister Modi's call to action, both in terms of dialogue and diplomacy to resolve conflict, and the effort to end the various conflicts around the world.
U.S. President Joe Biden hosted a gala dinner for heads of delegations at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in San Francisco on Thursday night. India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal also attended the gala. APEC accounts for about 62% of global GDP and almost half of global trade. U.S. President Joe Biden has said that he would keep working to advance a Pacific Trade Pact.
We're talking to our competitors, and the key, and just talking, just being blunt with one another, so there's no misunderstanding, as a key element to maintaining global stability and delivering for the American people. Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he is the guy who runs a country that is a communist country that's based on a form of government totally different than ours.
U.S. President Joe Biden announced that the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework is launching a critical minerals dialogue with the objective of strengthening supply chains and promoting the creation of clean energy jobs.
We've committed to extending our cooperation to challenges like artificial intelligence, energy security, and semiconductors. We're launching a critical minerals dialogue to further strengthen our supply chains and create clean energy jobs. And today, I'm proud to announce that the United States is launching what we'll call the Investment Accelerator through our partnership with the Global Infrastructure and Investment. The Accelerator is going to bring private capital off the sidelines for major investments in clean energy and high technology.
India's Earth Sciences Minister Kiren Rijiju, who is on a visit to the Maldives, took stock of the progress of the Greater Malay Connectivity Project on Friday. The project is being undertaken under the Government of India's concessional line of credit and grant to the Maldives. It's aimed to usher economic development and prosperity in the Greater Malay region. Minister Rijiju arrived in Maldives on Thursday for the official two-day visit to represent India in the President's swearing-in ceremony. Dr. Mohammad Muizzu will be sworn in as the new President of Maldives today. Dr. Muizzu defeated incumbent President Ibrahim Mohamed Solih in the recent runoff elections held in September. The Indian leader's representation underlines the importance of the regional partnership which India has fostered through Sagar, or security and growth for all in the region, and its neighborhood first policy. Moving on in other news, Turkey's defense ministry says its military carried out airstrikes in northern Iraq and killed 13 Kurdish militants. The airstrikes were carried out in the Kirkuk region of northern Iraq. The attack on Kurdish targets are part of Ankara's Claw Lock operation. Turkey has intensified attacks on Kurdish militants in Syria and Iraq in recent weeks after militants detonated a bomb near government buildings in Ankara on the 1st of October. US President Joe Biden has signed a stopgap spending bill averting a government shutdown in what has come as a major relief for federal government employees. Biden approved the bill a day after it was passed by the Senate. The Senate vote marked the end of this year's third fiscal standoff in the Congress that saw lawmakers bring Washington, D.C. to the brink of defaulting on its more than $31 trillion in debt. A partial shutdown would have led to delayed salary payments to 4 million federal government employees. The United Nations Top Court will hand down its ruling on Friday on a case brought by Armenia against Azerbaijan. Armenia wants the court to put restrictive measures in place to prevent what they call the ethnic cleansing of Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, a claim Azerbaijan denies. Alex Cadier reports from Brussels.
It's now nearly 2 months since Azerbaijani forces stormed into Nagorno-Karabakh, uprooting the local self-proclaimed Republic of Artsakh, which had close ties with Armenia. What followed was the exodus of more than 100,000 ethnic Armenians from the region, leaving shattered lives behind. Armenia now says the few that remain are at risk of ethnic cleansing at the hands of Azerbaijani troops, and it wants the International Court of Justice to step in. Armenia is asking the ICJ to put in place 10 provisional measures aimed at protecting the rights of ethnic Armenians from that Nagorno-Karabakh region. The head of Armenia's legal team says nothing other than targeted and unequivocal provisional measures protecting the rights of ethnic Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh will suffice to prevent the ethnic cleansing Azerbaijan is perpetrating from continuing and becoming irreversible. Meanwhile, Azerbaijan has strenuously denied all of Armenia's allegations. The country's deputy foreign minister, Elnur Mammadov, said Azerbaijan has not engaged and will not engage in ethnic cleansing or any form of attack on the civilian population of Karabakh. The International Court of Justice is currently working through 2 similar cases linked to the decades-long conflict between the two sides. In 2021, Armenia filed a claim accusing Azerbaijan of breaching the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. Shortly thereafter, Azerbaijan filed a counterclaim accusing Armenia of doing the same thing. The legal wranglings between an emboldened Azerbaijan and a weakened Armenia will likely carry on beyond this ruling, a ruling which even the court will have no practical way to enforce. Alex Cadier in Brussels reporting for DD India.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. SpaceX to test its spacecraft for a second time as part of a wider mission to put a human back on the moon. Talks on in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, for an international treaty for tackling plastic pollution. And World Meteorological Organization warns of more extreme weather patterns and sea level rise until 2060.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such change makers.
Watch Change Makers on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi opens a second Voice of Global South Summit, says it's time for members to speak in one voice for greater global good. The central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh goes to the polls today, voting also on in the second and final phase of election in the state of Chhattisgarh. And 5 Lashkar-e-Toiba terrorists killed in firefight with Indian security forces at Kulgam in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. And going back to our top story, India hosting the second edition of the Voice of Global South Summit. India's External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar, while addressing the Foreign Ministers' session, said that the Voice of the Global South Summit can be truly greatly impactful.
As we look ahead, our vision of everyone's growth with everyone's trust is far from accomplished. While change is the natural order, there continues to be a resistance for a greater role for the Global South in shaping solutions for the key issues of our times. But together, we need to continue putting greater emphasis on the need to take everyone along and everyone's views along, while we deliberate at multilateral and plurilateral forums. The Voice of the Global South Summit can be greatly impactful by amplifying our individual voices and project our shared interests for the emerging world order.
Meanwhile, during the address, India's External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar also said that India reaffirms its commitment to the Global South through an extensive range of development projects in 78 countries.
India, for its part, reaffirms its commitments to the Global South through an extensive range of development projects in 78 countries. These projects are demand-driven, outcome-oriented, transparent, and sustainable. I assure you that this will only expand in its scale and scope in the times to come. We will always welcome your views, suggestions, and proposals in this context. As India embraces digital delivery, promotes green growth, and ensures affordable health access, it will always have the Global South at the center of its international partnerships.
Captain Alok Bansal joins us. He is the director of India Foundation, a public policy think tank headquartered in New Delhi. Captain Bansal, welcome to DD India News Hour. First off, what did you make of the Prime Minister's opening remarks to the second edition of the summit?
See, the first thing is that this second edition is very, very important because while the Global South has always existed, I think it had no voice. And I think Prime Minister Modi has endeavored to give the Global South a voice, understand their common problems as the countries of the South, though despite being in a majority, did not have adequate voice at the peak level. And I think that is where I think this is very, very important, this virtual conference that is taking place. And I think the issues that have been highlighted shows India's commitment to Global South. And I think the key takeaways from Prime Minister's speech were, as he said, as India has always been opposing terrorism, and I think that is where we have, I think, highlighted, and we have gone out of our way to condemn the terrorist attack in Israel by Hamas that took place. At the same time, we have said that any loss of civilian life is deplorable, and I think we we condemn the loss of civilian lives. India has gone out of its way to provide humanitarian aid to Palestinians, and the Prime Minister has again reiterated again and again that we need to get together to come together to project the common problems of the Global South. There is a need for dialogue. The countries should talk. And as far as this ongoing conflict is concerned, he's also talking about giving diplomacy a chance. So we have done, and I think the Global South needs to unite. And that's one of the whole aim of this particular conference, that the nations of the South, which are more in number but have lacked adequate voice, must unite and project the problems that are common to the Global South.
Indeed, Captain Bansal, Prime Minister Modi also spoke about the responsible use of artificial intelligence. He says India will organize an artificial intelligence global partnership summit. If I were to ask you, how are India and the Global South at large preparing to face the challenges posed by AI going forward?
See, firstly, we need to understand that this government, especially and India in general, has always tried to share its expertise with other countries. If you remember, when we have expertise in space, we offered it to all SAARC countries. If they want to use it, we allowed them. We have tried to share our prowess in the field of green technologies and solar energy, etc., where we have tried to. And now India, amongst the Global South, is a country which is in the forefront as far as AI is concerned. And AI, while it has enormous uses, can also be at times destructive. So I think how to create this responsible infrastructure for AI, we are at this moment working on it, and we will try to get the Global South to communicate and come together so that we can plan to tap these resources and help them harness it for useful purposes, so that it is not in any way poses a threat to the global community in days to come.
Captain Bansal, if I may go back to the West Asia conflict, PM Modi also touched upon, as you mentioned, the Israel-Hamas conflict. He says that the Global South should unite for the greater global good. How would you define India's interests or stakes in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
See, we have enormous stakes because both sides of the conflict, we have friends. We have very good relations with Palestinian Authority. We have very good relations with Israel. And we won't want this non-combatant civilians to die in this sort of a conflict, because we have seen in recent past that conflicts have a tendency to spiral out of control. And it's become very difficult to control them. So we would want that dialogue and discussion should bring this conflict to an end, because otherwise military solution to this conflict does not seem a short-term solution. It will take time, and I think we might have to get embroiled. And it has a direct impact on us. If you know, just before this conflict started, we were looking at a corridor from India to Europe through this particular region. Now the conflict has provided a huge setback to that particular project, which would have been a dream project for India and the region. So that has been affected. So we would ideally want that this conflict ends by diplomacy. Organizations like Hamas do not control territories like Gaza, and Palestinian Authority is allowed to control Gaza as they have been controlling the West Bank, and a proper two-state solution comes into being.
Captain Bansal, I have just about enough time to ask you one quick question. In your estimation, is India truly emerging as a voice of the Global South? Is the reform of multilateral organizations an idea whose time has come?
See, this is an idea whose time has come. And I think the realities of the world are crying and telling them that there is a time for reform of multilateral organizations. But the people who are occupying these seats of power are reluctant and will continue to remain reluctant to do that. As far as India being the voice of the global south, I think there is no doubt about it. There's no other country which has tried to take the global south together as much as India has done it. So India is ideally the voice of global south, and I think India needs a better representation. The global south needs a better representation at all these multilateral organizations.
All right, we leave it at that. Captain Alok Bansal, Director, India Foundation, speaking to us about the second edition of the Voice of Global South Summit taking place as we speak here in New Delhi. Right, moving on to some other stories we are tracking for you on DD India News Hour. News coming in from the Indian Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir now, where 5 Lashkar-e-Toiba terrorists have been neutralized in the ongoing firefight with security forces in the Kulgam district. According to Kashmir Police, the operation undertaken by Kulgam Police, the Army and CRPF is in its final stages and the area is being sanitized. The police said that incriminating materials were also recovered. The encounter broke out on Thursday afternoon at the Samno pocket of the Pora area of Kulgam district. And Shabbir Dar joins us on the phone line from Srinagar. Shabbir, is the Kulgam operation over?
Yeah, we can say that the operation is in progress. The sanitization and the sanitization process of the area is on. The forces, including Army, Police, and CRPF, are searching the area to ensure that no ammunition or any further body is hollowed up somewhere. But we can say that this is the biggest achievement for the forces and one of the biggest encounters in the hinterland area of Kashmir this year, as we saw that 5 terrorists have been gunned down and a huge quantity of arms and ammunition has been recovered. As we already know that this was an intelligence-based input which led the army, the joint forces of Army, Police and CRPF to encircle the area, Samno area, which is in the South Kashmir, Kulgam district, near the forest, and one of the forces, entered the village. The terrorists fired from their side, which led to the encounter. It was sustained for the night, but this morning, when it was resumed, the forces got a huge, success by eliminating 5 hardcore terrorists.
Shabbir, I want to ask you about another report coming in from the valley. What can you tell us about a similar operation in Uri, in which a certain number of terrorists were killed overnight?
Yeah, in Uri, that was an infiltration bit. The terrorists were pushed in to this side from the Pakistan, actually to carry out, the terrorist activities in Kashmir. But our alert troops in the border areas in Uri, they thwarted that infiltration bid and led to the killing of these terrorists.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Shabbir Dar in Srinagar, thank you. Appreciate it. Moving on to some more news from India. Efforts to evacuate 40 trapped construction workers in a tunnel in the northern Indian state of Uttarakhand have been intensified. Some progress has been seen as a heavy-duty drilling machine penetrated 21 meters of rubble on the Char Dham route. Officials say that the insertion of a 6-meter steel pipe into the bored passage with welding underway for another section raises hopes of a successful rescue operation. All right, take a look now at some other stories making news in India. India's northeastern city of Shillong is now once again turning pink as cherry blossoms have started blooming all over the city. The Shillong Cherry Blossom Festival is being organized in the northeastern Indian state of Meghalaya from 17th to 19th November. The festival is a celebration of culture, art and music. It offers a diverse range of activities from cosplay competitions and beauty pageants to choir contests and a thrilling zip line. To ensure the saturation of flagship government schemes, a Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra camp was organized by Government of India in the Union Territory of Ladakh. The event was started by welcoming the information, education and communication vans. Viksit Bharat pledge was taken by the participants on the occasion. The Indian Army, in collaboration with the Border Roads Organization or BRO, has successfully completed the construction of the Bailey Bridge over the Teesta River in the northeastern Indian state of Sikkim. Now, this marks a significant milestone as the bridge reconnects the flood-affected areas of North Sikkim with the mainland, re-establishing vital transportation links that were cut off by the floods. Moving on, Sri Lanka has shared details of its agreement with China's Exim Bank with the Paris Club. Reports from local news portals indicated the island nation had come to an agreement with the Chinese Exim Bank in October this year to restructure the debt owed by Sri Lanka. Central Bank Governor Nandalal Veerasinghe emphasized the significance of this development, noting that sharing these details was a crucial step towards potential assistance from the Paris Club. Veerasinghe expressed hope that this would pave the way for clearing an impending International Monetary Fund review before the year's end. Veerasinghe highlighted the nation's efforts to align with December IMF targets concerning reserves and central bank credit to the government. SpaceX is about to test its spacecraft flight for a second time as part of a wider mission with NASA to get humans back on the moon. The first test flight blew up minutes after takeoff, and it's taken months to get regulators to clear another try. Caroline Malone reports from Washington, D.C.
SpaceX is hoping to be part of the next giant leap for mankind, 50 years after humans first went to the moon. A test window for the Starship spacecraft launch will open from Saturday, when the spacecraft is due to shoot up and then detach from its rocket. CEO Elon Musk said earlier in the year he sees about a 50% chance of it reaching orbital velocity, but even getting to stage separation is a win. That's better odds than when it first tested in April, when the Starship faltered within minutes after it took off and had to self-destruct, exploding over the Gulf of Mexico. Since then, SpaceX has had to wait for safety and environmental reviews, but has now been cleared by regulators to try again. The ultimate goal is for the spacecraft to play a part in NASA's Artemis moon mission, a return to the lunar surface in 2025, and even to put humans onto Mars for the first time. Caroline Malone in Washington, reporting for DD India.
A large number of international negotiators and UN representatives are meeting in Nairobi in Kenya to come up with an international treaty to tackle the world's plastic pollution problem. According to UN, less than 10% of the plastic waste created globally has been recycled. Interlocutors are hoping to reach consensus on a legally binding agreement by next year. William Denslow has more from UN headquarters in New York City.
An estimated 430 million tonnes of plastic is produced every year, but the United Nations warns that 2/3 of it ends up thrown away. Scientists say this is creating an ecological crisis. The social and environmental cost of plastic pollution is estimated to be between $300 to $600 billion a year. And analysts expect plastic production to double over the next 2 decades. In a bid to turn the tide, negotiators from nations around the world gathered in Nairobi, Kenya this week as efforts continue to reach consensus on a treaty to address the threat of plastic pollution. This is the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee's 3rd session, as it continues work on a so-called zero-draft text.
This means rethinking everything along the chain, from polymer to production, from product to packaging. We need to use fewer virgin materials, less plastic, and no harmful chemicals. We need to ensure that we use and reuse and recycle resources more efficiently and dispose safely of what is left over.
A key mission is to see the world move from a throwaway economy to a reuse economy. But deep divisions remain on issues including whether to focus on cuts to plastic production or just the management of plastic waste. The INC3 meeting is slated to wrap up on Sunday, before delegates reconvene for another round of talks in Canada in April. William Denslow in New York reporting for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. India beats Kuwait 1-0 in the FIFA World Cup second round qualifiers. And Formula One returns to Las Vegas with a glitzy opening ceremony.
Welcome to a happy place. To nature's warm embrace. Witness the power of faith. Fruits of hard work.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. And now to all the news from the world of sport with Deepika. Deepika, take it away.
Good afternoon, Ramesh. Now we have the Super 2 finalists, which are India and Australia, who are going to face each other in the ICC Cricket Men's World Cup. Well, yesterday Australia defeated South Africa by 3 wickets in the second semi-final in India's eastern city of Kolkata. Australia now will meet India in the title clash on the 19th of November. It was a low-scoring match. South Africa were bundled out for 212 runs, with Australian pacers Mitchell Starc and Josh Hazlewood wreaking havoc. The Proteas at one stage were 24 for 4. David Miller then rose to the occasion, slamming a century and helping his side put up a decent 212 on the board. Australia started well, with Warner and Travis Head putting on 60 runs for the opening wicket in less than 7 overs. But then the going got tough, with Australia losing wickets at regular intervals, and thanks to some tight bowling by Keshav Maharaj and Tabriz Shamsi, making for a keen contest. But Australian captain Pat Cummins and fellow pacer Starc batted with assurance towards the end to take their side over the line with nearly 3 overs to spare. So India will face Australia in the finals of the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup 2023 after the latter beat South Africa by 3 wickets in the second semi-finals at Eden Gardens. Let's take a look at India's journey so far to World Cup Super Finale.
Armed with a formidable batting unit and a strong bowling attack, India have stormed into the first World Cup final in 12 years after winning 10 games on the trot. The latest being a 70-run win over New Zealand in a thriller at the Wankhede Stadium. Here is a look at India's unbeaten journey into the World Cup final. Match 1, October 8, 2023, India vs Australia. India won by 6 wickets with 52 balls remaining. Match 2, October 11, 2023, India vs Afghanistan. India won by 8 wickets with 90 balls remaining. Match 3, October 14, 2023, India vs Pakistan. India won by 7 wickets with 117 balls remaining. Match 4, October 19, 2023, India vs Bangladesh. India won by 7 wickets with 51 balls remaining. Match 5, October 2023, India vs New Zealand. India won by 4 wickets with 12 balls remaining. Match 6, October 29, 2023, India vs England. India won by 100 runs. Match 7, November 2, 2023, India vs Sri Lanka. India won by 302 runs. Match 8, November 5, 2023, India vs South Africa. India won by 243 runs. Match 9, November 12, 2023, India vs Netherlands. India won by 160 runs. Match 10, November 15, 2023, semi-final, India vs New Zealand. India won by 70 runs in Mumbai. Sports Desk, DD India.
And now to discuss more on this, I'm joined by sports correspondent Narayan Singh from Newsroom. Good afternoon, Narayan. Now, this is a rematch of 2003 finale between India and Australia. Not only it is about the finals, but many stats coincide with each other when we also talk about the group stage of 2003 Cricket World Cup. Can India recreate history this time?
Definitely, it's an opportunity for the India to win a World Cup after a long gap. Last time they won a ODI World Cup in 2011 under the captaincy of MS Dhoni. And before that, in 2003, both the teams, both the powerhouses of the world cricket were up against each other. And at that time, India lost that match. And it's an opportunity for the India to win this grudge match at the world's largest stadium. And it's the match between the top two teams in the world. So the way India has batted, the way they bowled in this match, in this whole World Cup, we can say that they has an unblemished record, and we are hoping that they will continue that thing in that match also, because if you take a look at India's journey here, the kind of cricket they played, they were never looked in pressure. Even if you take a look in the match against New Zealand, their batsmen came, and the way Rohit Sharma gave a start to the team, and down the other Virat Kohli, and then we saw the way all our remaining batsmen played was fantastic, and they have to maintain this tempo in the final also. And the way our bowlers are performing, if you talk about Mohammad Shami, the most exceptional bowler in the World Cup, where we saw in the match against New Zealand, the bowlers like Trent Bolt and Tim Southee was struggling, and both of them considered around 180 runs, and our fast bowler Jasprit Bumrah and Siraj also struggling, but then Shami came, and the way they just destroyed we can say that their opening order and later on the middle order. That's the key to the India to the success, and we are hoping that here also, the way they played the whole tournament, they will also do that thing, replicate the performance of the league stage and semi-final in the final also, and we are hoping that we will again win this World Cup after 2011.
Indeed, let's keep our fingers crossed. Thank you so much, Narayan, for joining us and bringing us those important inputs on the most important match. Now, moving on, let's get you an update from soccer as well. India defeated Kuwait by 1-0 in FIFA World Cup second round qualifiers. Manveer Singh scored with a left-footed shot in the 75th minute as he connected with Lalanzuala Changate cross to help India win the match at Jaber Al Ahmad International Stadium. Kuwait ended the match with 10 men as its players Faisal Al Harbi was sent off after picking his second yellow card in the 3rd minute to the added time for a high put challenge on Changate. India now plays Asian champions Qatar next on the 21st of November in Bhubaneswar. India is currently placed in Group A alongside Qatar, Kuwait and Afghanistan, with the top two from the group progressing to the 3rd round of FIFA World Cup qualifiers. So that was a quick wrap from the world of sports. Back to Ramesh.
Thank you, Deepika. And before we close, Formula One stars are focusing on the Las Vegas Grand Prix despite the excitement of the sport's return after more than 4 decades. The opening ceremony featured music stars such as Kylie Minogue and 30 Seconds to Mars. Qualifying starts at midnight on Friday, November 17, and the race will start on Saturday, the 18th of November. The 17-corner anti-clockwise track is the second longest on the calendar. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website, ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.